Roosevelt Field, Long Island, May 20th, 1927. A 25-year-old airmail pilot decides to take off for Paris, 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. 6 men have already died in the attempt. He is determined to do it alone. He was born in Detroit, Michigan on February 4th, 1902, and was raised on the family farm near Little Falls, Minnesota, on the west bank of the Mississippi. His father was a Swedish immigrant son, a turned Minnesota lawyer and congressman, so stoical that he once endured an operation on his stomach without anesthetic. He taught his son to be stoical too. When young Charles fell into the Mississippi, his father refused to jump in after him, confident the boy would teach himself to swim. Charles' mother, Evangeline, was a high school teacher, overprotective of her only child, but distant. To the end of her life, she and her son can't go to bed. When I was a child, Lindbergh remembered, I spent hours lying on my back, watching white cumulus clouds drift overhead. How wonderful it would be, I thought, if I had an airplane. Then I would ride on the wind and be part of the sky. He signed up for lessons with a Nebraska aircraft manufacturer. Lindbergh began as a barnstormer's assistant. He was billed as Daredevil Lindbergh, but his fellow barnstormers called him Slim. In 1923, even before he had received his pilot's license, he sold his motorcycle and borrowed the rest of the $500 he needed to buy his first plane, a World War I surplus Jenny. Lindbergh flew all over the West with a Brownie camera, his friend Leon Klink, and a dog named Booster. Spirals, barrel rolls, tail spins, figure eights. Lindbergh learned to do them all. He flew anything he could get his hands on. Was graduated as a first lieutenant in the Army Air Service Reserve, and in 1926 took a job flying the mail. 31 of the first 40 airmail pilots would be killed. Lindbergh pioneered the route between St. Louis and Chicago. He landed in farmers' fields by flashlight, survived 2 crashes, and soon grew bored.
Now, at the age of 24, he has been a pilot for more than 4 years and logged close to 2,000 hours in the air. A flight to Paris would be the greatest challenge he has ever faced. He cannot resist. Lindbergh decides to enter the race for the Orteig Prize. The first step must be raising enough money to buy a plane. For this, he has an idea. There are businessmen in the city of St. Louis, rich and powerful men who believe in the future of aviation. In his spare time, Lindbergh has been giving flying lessons to some of them. He will convince them that a New York to Paris flight sponsored by St. Louis businessmen would help to make that city a center of aviation. Lindbergh puts up the first money himself, $2,000. It is his entire savings. Together, they raise $15,000. It is enough money to buy a plane. A single-engine plane which Lindbergh feels would be perfect for the flight. To promote their new Whirlwind engine, the Wright Company has commissioned one of the finest aircraft designers to build a special plane. His name is Giuseppe Balanca, and his creation is known as the Wright Balanca. This one-of-a-kind airplane is kept at the Wright factory across New York's Hudson River. Train fare to New York is the first expense for the St. Louis backers. Lindbergh has an appointment at the Wright Aeronautical Company. A custom-tailored suit is another expense. Buying it specially for the trip, he is determined to make a good impression on the company officers in order to convince them to sell him the Balanca plane. New York City. It is not a place Lindbergh likes. He has grown used to the rambling wide openness of the Midwest, and all big cities make him uncomfortable. His discomfort increases when he learns that the right people will not quote him a price on their Belanca plane. They already have another buyer lined up. If buying a ready-made plane is so difficult, why not have one custom built? With this in mind, Lindbergh contacts aircraft manufacturers. He sends each one the same telegram. One company responds. Delivery 3 months, when Commander Byrd and Davis and Wooster already have a plane. Lindbergh's chances seem very slim. A wasted trip to New York is quickly followed by a hopeful one to San Diego, California, to look over the Ryan Airlines Company. At their Barnett Avenue factory, a shabby but functional building near the waterfront, Lindbergh meets Donald Hall, the company's chief engineer. It is Hall who will be responsible for designing the transatlantic plane if Lindbergh should decide to contract with Ryan. The 28-year-old Hall accompanies Lindbergh on a tour of the plant. The smell of dead fish from the nearby waterfront mixes strangely with the banana-like odor of dope coating being applied to wings. Despite the unsavory aroma, Lindbergh is impressed by what he sees. It is obvious that Ryan is an efficient operation. But there is a further consideration. The answer lies in Donald Hall, in his skill as an aircraft designer. The two men spend the day together at the factory. That night, Lindbergh writes to his backers, "I believe in Hall's ability. I'll cast my lot with the Ryan Company." Construction is moving along as fast as Hall can produce drawings from his board, Lindbergh writes. Everyone is taking a personal interest in my flight. Hours of overtime labor have become normal and voluntary. It's less than 3 weeks since I arrived in San Diego, yet skeletons have taken form of the wing and the fuselage. Donald Hall clears off a table in his drafting room for Lindbergh to use. As Hall is plotting the lines and curves of his plane, Lindbergh must plot a course across the Atlantic. He breaks the journey into 100-mile takes, the equivalent of 1 hour's flying time, at the cruising speed that Donald Hall estimates for the new plane. This means that there will be a change of compass heading for every 100 miles of the flight. April 26, 1927. The completed plane is removed from the factory in 2 parts. First, fuselage. One side of the landing gear has been removed to clear the doorway. The wing is upstairs and has to be taken through a window. A railroad car is used as the first stage in the lowering process. The wing is all used to the ground. The Department of Commerce has assigned the plane a number. N is the international code letter for the United States. X means it is experimental. The new plane also has a name. Harold Bixby, one of the backers, has suggested it. Wing joins fuselage, and the Spirit of St. Louis is ready for her maiden flight. The men and women who built her pose with their creation. They have each signed their name on a wing spar. Lindbergh says his farewells to Donald Hall and the Ryan staff and flies from San Diego to St. Louis. He stays in St. Louis overnight to give his backers a chance to see the airplane that their faith and money has built. The following day, he flies the Spirit of St. Louis to New York. The cross-country hop is made in record time, and on the afternoon of May 12th, he arrives at Huddersfield, Long Island. He is met by an enormous crowd of newsmen, photographers, and the just plain curious. They have all come for their peak prize. The days pass slowly, with no break in the weather unit. To escape the monotony of waiting, Lindbergh accepts an invitation from a public relations man assigned to him by the Wright Corporation. They are going to see the Broadway hit musical Rio Rita. It's been arranged for Lindbergh to watch the show from backstage. It should be a treat for the photographers, the transatlantic hopeful surrounded by showgirls. Even Lindbergh thinks it ought to be great fun. The waiting has made him restless. Before they reach the theater, one more call is made to the Weather Bureau. There has been a change. Over the North Atlantic, the skies are clearing. With all thought of Rio Rita gone, Lindbergh hurries back to Curtis Field to prepare for a dawn takeoff, 2.5 hours in which to sleep. The fuel tanks will be filled to capacity, 450 gallons, bringing the weight of the Spirit of St. Louis to more than 5,000 pounds. It is a greater load than she has ever lifted.
Shortly after dawn on May 20th, he pushed down on the throttle and the plane began to move. The Spirit of St. Louis had never taken off with a full load of gasoline. It now weighed 2.5 tons. He cleared the telephone wires at the end of the field by less than 20 feet and disappeared into the fog. Newspapers reported Lindbergh over New England, then Nova Scotia. Then he vanished.
When he disappeared, after he left Newfoundland for 16 hours, no radio, no ships, no nothing, the world stood in awe. Here was this young man in a day when aviation was almost unknown. He had disappeared, and of course, the odds were totally against him.
He flew on toward Paris, pleased that everything had gone just as he had planned. But he could never have foreseen what was waiting below. At 10:22 p.m. on May 21st, 1927, after 33.5 hours in the air, his wheels finally touched the earth. Never in my life have I seen anything like that human sea, Lindbergh remembered. Dozens of hands took hold of me. My legs, my arms, my body. I found myself on top of the crowd, in the center of an ocean of heads that extended as far out into the darkness as I could see. 2 French pilots finally rescued him, and he spent the rest of the night in the American embassy, wearing pajamas borrowed from the ambassador. Overnight, Lindbergh had become the world's hero, but Americans had other ideas.
When I landed at Le Bourget, I landed with the expectancy of being able to see Europe. But found that it didn't make much difference whether I wanted to stay over there or not. And I was informed that while it wasn't in order to come back home, that there'd be a battleship waiting for me next week.
President Calvin Coolidge dispatched a warship to bring America's hero home. The Flying Fool had become the Lone Eagle. $4.5 million New Yorkers turned out for a glimpse of him as he arrived in New York Harbor and rode up Broadway.
From coast to coast we all can boast and sing a toast to one who's made a name for being game. Lucky Lindy, up in the sky, fair or windy, hero of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen of the radio audience, this is Graham McNamee speaking from Washington, D.C. Awaiting Lindbergh. Lindbergh is coming down the gangplank, walking slowly. A darn nice boy.
Lindbergh was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, the French Legion of Honor, and the British Air Force Cross. 4,000 poets composed verse in his honor. He received 100,000 telegrams and cables, 14,000 packages, and 3.5 million letters. Requests for funds, proposals of marriage, the award of the Silver Buffalo from the Boy Scouts, a German Shepherd, an airplane, and a lifetime pass from the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues. And there were job offers that would make him a wealthy man.
Others may make that trip across the sea upon some future day. But take your hats off to plucky, lucky Lindbergh, the eagle of the USA.
Every man that flies the ocean from now on will always be just an imitation of Lindbergh.